pro cyclists burn up to from 8 to 12,000 calories just in one sitting, which is the equivalent of 15 to 20 Big Macs, which for me is just crazy to hear.
Our lowest recommendation will be around 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram. That means if you are already, let's say you weigh like 60 kg, you are already eating like 180 grams of carbohydrate.
And that is only on the breakfast?
Only on the breakfast.
Okay.
By the end, when we are taking the creatine, we are retaining also some water inside of our muscle, which is not bad. It's part of how our body works. But at the end, that means that the rider is going to be slightly heavier. So maybe if we are talking about a climber, we are not looking for that. I will say caffeine is really important. The amount is on based on the duration of the effort that you are going to do. Let's say as longer is the effort, as smarter you have to be on the amount. But let's say in general, the gels or those stuff is that's a healthy food that is terrible for performance, no? Actually.
So what if I told you there's a sport that you can eat 20 Big Macs a day and you're still in maintenance? Well, let me tell you that sport exists, and it's cycling. Today we had the chance to speak with Marco Alcalde. Marco is the sport nutritionist for Team Bahrain Victorious, which is one of the best performing teams in the World Tour right now for cycling. In the podcast episode, we went into everything that goes into the nutrition of a cycling team, and the immense caloric expenditure that ranges from 8,000 to 12,000 calories per stage. Yeah, per stage. So he goes into all the different nutrition techniques that they do in order to be able to give the body the amount of energy that they need, not only to maintain their body weight, but to perform at the best of their abilities. So if you think it's impossible, it's because it's almost impossible. But if you watch the podcast, you realize how they make it possible. And the good thing about the episode is that the concepts that we talk here not only apply for the most extreme cases, but he gave very actionable advice for how every athlete should eat and how they should approach nutrition in a way that's going to help them perform in a better way. So if you're an athlete that just wants to level up your nutrition game to perform in a better way, then this episode is definitely for you. Enjoy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Runners Podcast. Today we're here with our guest, Marco Alcalde Martin. Thank you very much for being with us, and introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, guys. Thank you for giving me to be present here today, to give me the space to have this nice conversation. So really appreciate it. Marco Alcalde from Spain, actually performer nutritionist in cycling. So probably today we will discussing about those topics, and I hope they can be interesting for you guys. In the past, also a competitive cyclist. By the years, maybe a bit more focused on the, let's say, academic side, more focused in the university. So I wasn't good enough to reach the professional level by my legs. So finally, I need to push a bit harder on the studies. And finally, we are here joining this high performance environment. So nowadays, working like a performance nutritionist in Team Bahrain Victorious, one of the best contenders in the world. So let's get ready for this nice conversation.
Of course, Marcos. I'm gonna read a report that I got here, and it says that pro cyclists burn up to from 8 to 12,000 calories just in one sitting, which is the equivalent of 15 to 20 Big Macs, which for me is just crazy to hear. So I just wanted to start off the conversation and asking you, how do you guys as a nutritionist handle this huge amount of caloric expenditure?
Now, as you mentioned, nowadays in cycling or in general, is one of our biggest challenge will be just to make sure the riders are, let's say, eating enough energy to be able to then push those numbers that we can see daily in the competition. So by the end, nowadays cyclists have been changing a lot. Every day more focused on nutritional terms. Well, yes, we try to give them best recommendation dailies Nowadays, we are trying to track all the foods via application, so we can really have under control, let's say, the calories that the riders are eating. By the end, just one of our biggest challenge or our key moments of how to work properly, I will say, is try to understand in advance what the rider is going to train or what the rider is going to spend on the competition. So just to think the tactics in advance and to give them like the good advices. As you mentioned, calorie wise is like crazy numbers. So for sure we need to be really focused on the nutrients. We are, let's say, daily eating huge amount of carbs just to make sure they have the energy to train properly and to face the competition in a good condition. So let's say we are always trying to see what they are going to spend in advance, and then we let's say we do our menus, our recommendations.
And I mean, you mentioned that you guys try to predict in some way the expenditure that the athlete is going to have throughout the competition. How do you guys do that? I mean, of course, I imagine it's not perfect, but how do you guys make sure that that prediction is as accurate as possible?
Yeah. I mean, we have like different factors in consideration, but let's say cycling is a really nice sport in these terms, because all the riders, they are using a power meter on his bikes that actually measure the power that they are pushing on the pedals. Through this power, we can understand like really well the calories that they are spending, because we can do a relationship between kilojoules and kilocalories. I mean, we get the input of the power. We understand the kilojoules that they are spending, and through that we can understand the calories that they are spending. So let's say if they are going to face a training that they have done previously, we can check the power of the last training, understand, okay, maybe it's going to be 3 hours, around 250 watts. We measure the power by watts. So actually on those terms, let's say we can understand the calories that they are going to spend on the bike. And when we are facing a competition, we can do our own formulas to understand, okay, this race is going to be 4 hours 30. Let's say if we try to analyze the elevation of the race and the average pace, we can understand also the power that they are going to push during the race. And let's say through that information, we can give them, or we can calculate in advance the calories that are going to be needed. For sure, that is in advance. Then we need to see what is going on in the competition, what happened, if something changed, and we will do the final adjustment.
Does it normally happen that there's been big changes in your calculations? And if yes, how do you react to them?
In general, should be correct, the calculation, but then I will say in training should be quite smooth. Okay, if it's raining or the rider is not able to train the total time that was planned, we can have like a daily contact or whatever, and we will do the adjustment quite easy. And then in competition, I will say biggest challenge is that sometimes maybe we do our calculation and it seems to be a really easy stage, flat stage, lovely day to ride on the bike, but suddenly it's like crosswind and they start to go full gas from the very beginning. And what we expect like an easy day ends like a critical power day. So for sure, after the stage, we check what was going on and we try to do the adjustment. But I will say weather condition plays a key role in cycling and can flick a bit our calculation for sure.
Definitely, it will play a big role in terms of the amount of effort that the athlete would have to put in, let's say, if the weather is in the best conditions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is that relation between kilojoules and kilocalories? I mean, I never, of course, it's, you can think, okay, the more effort they're putting, the more calories they're gonna burn.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was like such a linear relationship. Like, what does that relationship look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that easy to understand. I will try to explain as best as I can. But let's say when we measure the calories, we get an input which is called a kilojoules, and this is let's say mechanical power, right? But to push this mechanical power, our body needs chemical power, which are the calories. No, we get the carbohydrate, we get the fats, and we burn them, and we get the let's say the chemical power. But as we are able to measure the power that they are pushing in the pedals by a machine which is called a power meter, we can get like a really good relationship for sure. That has been studied previously on the labs. They do some like really tests with the machine which measure to you the calories that you are spending through you are pushing the pedals. So let's say in general population, the efficiency is around 0.2 until 0.25, no? So let's say average we used to have like 0.23, and that means that if you push 4 kilojoules, you are spending no, sorry, if you push 1 kilojoule, you are spending 4 calories. So by the end we can do like a straight relationship.
Okay.
And by the end is not, I mean, we can use it like for the common population, but at the end for sure if we measure that in a lab, it's going to be a lot more accurate. But let's say we can do the relationship that 1 kilojoule is 1 kilocalorie.
Okay. Is that what you call MET? MET?
No, that will be the way to measure the calories. But let's say on those terms, what we are talking is about how efficiency is somebody on the way to push the pedals.
Yeah.
Let's say if we have a power meter which is measuring all the time how strong or how hard is a rider pushing the pedal, that get some power information, and we can do a relationship between mechanic power and chemical power, let's say.
Okay. I just think that's fascinating. I mean, you can't just see that principle of energy isn't destroyed, neither created, it's just transferred. It's like actually true, like even in the cases that you would not expect, like that power output that you're doing when you're pedaling is actually a relation of how much you're consuming, how much you're spending. I just think that's just so fascinating. And Marco, I mean, this power output, this data that you guys get that allows you to predict has not been there for all the time. So I wanted to ask you, how does the strategy for you guys to determine how much an athlete should eat, how they should fuel, how has this changed throughout the time? How is it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, probably if you ask to somebody there, they will answer that the department or let's say the point of the performance who has changed the most during the years is nutritional, because by the end, let's say training is kind of the same. For sure, they are doing new things from time to time, but also, let's say from a material point of view, the bikes have developed a lot. But I will say nutritional point of view is the one who has changed the most. Maybe if you ask somebody in the past, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they were eating like 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour on the bike. And nowadays they are all of them above 100.
Oh, really?
So then if you put that on the field, that means that they are able to push the pedals harder for longer time, because as we know, one of the main factors who develop the fatigue when you are doing an exercise, endurance exercise, is the levels of your glycogen. Glycogen stores are how your body store the carbohydrate that you are eating through the diet. So let's say one of our main targets, like a nutritionist, is just to make sure that the riders get into the competition with the glycogen stores completely full, completely ready to do a huge effort. And also in the bike with the carb intakes that they are doing through the drinks, through the gels, through the banana, rice cakes, and all this stuff. It's just to make sure they are able to keep the glycogen stores quite high. So let's say the fatigue is coming later on the activity, on the race, in the training, wherever.
I see. And you're gonna say something, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you're in one team. Do you know if other teams, because like we just heard, like nutrition is very numbers based. Are there other teams who have different tactics than your team, maybe?
I mean, nowadays, I will say all the World Tour teams, which are the highest level, nutritional wise, we are working quite similar. For sure, if you go into the details, we can have some difference on some various trains, some new supplements or whatever. But let's say in terms of nutrients, in terms of fueling, it's quite similar between the teams. or at least is what I think. Maybe then if you ask somebody else, the
We're
answer
doing
can
something in secret.
Yes. There are some secrets, but let's say I will say the 80 or 90% of the things we are doing like pretty similar.
Okay.
And then for sure, everyone has their own ideas. But I will say nowadays, in nutritional wise, all the things are working quite similar, I think.
And is it also individual to the athlete in some ways? Like say athlete, it's just, I mean, probably you would still tag him to eat salad. It says athlete says he doesn't like salad, like you just tell him to eat it, or?
Yeah, I mean, at the end is for example, in our team we have 28 riders, so everyone has like a different situation. We start the season. One of the first things that we do is just to measure the body composition to see how is it going, let's say the fat mass, because at the end cycling is a sport which is where the relationship between power and weight is play a is like a critical point, no? So by the end, we our role like a nutritionist is to put the riders in a as lower weight possible, no? And from there, just for sure through the training they can get the power. So let's say one of our main targets will be to get a really good body composition. So let's say depends the rider that we are talking. Maybe our idea is just to keep the weight or reduce the weight. So for sure, then the strategy and nutritional point of view it will be a bit different.
And now that you mentioned that point, because I want to get to like the actual strategies that you guys use, but now that you mentioned that point of body composition, what would be like a target BMI for a cyclist or a body fat percentage, like whatever you guys track?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hard to say because we cannot compare them with the general population.
Yeah.
So let's say the way that we used to have the body composition under control during the season is we do a technique which is called a skin folds. I don't know if you have heard about it.
With the calipers?
Yeah, with the caliper, we measure in 8 points of the body, so we can see the fat which is below the skin and the muscle. And we can understand, let's say, the impact of the diet on the body composition of the athlete during the season. So let's say we have our own target on those terms, and we really know because also we have the data from previous years. So let's say we know already where a rider was performing well, how far we need to go. For sure, if we are, let's say, with a young rider and we don't have so much experience about it, it's also a time to understand what is the best body composition for a new guy, let's say. But in terms of body composition, we are not only talking about about nutrition. We also need to understand how is it going the blood test, the load of training, if he is able to handle well with the load of training. So let's say, of course, as lower we go in the body composition, more chances we have to have the rider sick or maybe get some bad condition, or maybe we are in a phase of the season where we are really focused on do a training camp or whatever. So we really need to be aware of the situation and trying to find the right moment. But let's say all of the riders are really lean. I mean, it's quite different to other sports because by the end, in the upper body, they almost don't have like muscles. It's quite. I mean, it's quite hard to give a number that the people can understand in general. But all of them are like quite light. Yeah.
Can you, like, let's say for guys that are cycling that want to know like how are the pros, right? I mean, of course, it changes. Depend, as you mentioned, you look at data and see, okay, at what body composition does this athlete perform at his best? But is there a range that you would try to stay within? You know, you don't want to go lower than this and go over this. Is there a range for body fat percentage that you guys are trying to stay?
Yeah, we have some range because at the end we know from previous season, as we were discussing. So let's say in those times, the skin fold we measure, the final input is in millimeters because at the end you are measuring like a space in your body, let's say. And it changes a bit, depends, because for example, we have some riders which we call it like climbers, no? And climbers, they have to be like really light, those guys who are like maybe 60 kg, 65 kg. And then we have some, let's say, other riders which are like a bit bigger, a bit stronger on the flat areas, supporters, and those guys are more like 75 kg, 80 kg. So for example, those riders who are bigger, for sure, in terms of body composition, they are going to have a bit more of fat, and they are going to be not so lean in general, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of percentage of body fat, we are talking all of them are below 10%. It's no way they are higher than that. And then if you really go to the climbers, we can be really talking about maybe 5-6%, even a bit lower, I will say. But to be honest, we don't use that much the formulas, because at the end we are using the summatory of the 8 points. So let's say we have this, because by the end, the formulas of fat mass is a relationship between those points, and then you get into a formula and you have the final input. But we use, let's say, the summatory of the 8 points.
Addition of all the points. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And I mean, Marco, you gave us a very good like introduction to how the nutrition is handled in like the role that it plays in cycling. But now I want to get to the specifics on how do you guys manage it in a day-to-day basis, right? So starting with carbohydrates, right, which is like when you think about cycling, you as you mentioned before, you try to load most of the calories that you're getting that are going to be expended by carbohydrates. So what is the specific carbohydrate strategy? What are the amounts that you guys are using, let's say in a race day? Like runners, since the athlete wakes up until he goes to sleep, how do you guys handle the carbohydrate intake?
No, that's a really good question. Just to put in context, let's say around 70 up to 75% of the calories that the riders are eating are coming from the carbohydrates. So there's a huge percentage of the total intake in the day. And let's say when the riders are in a competition, let's say our daily routine will be, okay, they wake up, they go to the doctor, they have the initial check of the day, and then they jump into our kitchen track. So there we have the space where the chef can cook, and they have everything ready for the breakfast. Depends how, let's say, how long the time of the competition, how many hours it's going to be, how hard it's going to be. Recommendations change a bit, but let's say already from breakfast we are like hitting high numbers. I will say if you want to do the example with somebody, it's quite easy, because for example, let's say our lowest recommendation will be around 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram. That means if you are already, let's say you weigh like 60 kg, you are already eating like 180 grams of carbohydrate.
And that is only on the breakfast?
Only on the breakfast.
Okay.
Maybe so let's say on this way everybody can do it at their own home. Okay, just make the numbers and you can understand it. But let's say only at the breakfast they are already hitting maybe 180 grams of carbs. Of course, we provide them like the right option to get there, because for sure it's not that easy. If you want to do it at home, you need to put you need to go for the cereals, you need to go for the maybe the porridge that they used to eat a lot, fruit juice, jams, honey. I mean, this kind of food that makes easier to get that numbers. And of course, we can play a bit, depends how it's going to be the stage. But by the end, in a normal competition day, they have the breakfast. Then like 1 hour before of the competition, they used to have the pre-race snack, which used to be another maybe 40-60 grams of carbs. Later on the stage, we give them like the race plan, recommendation grams an hour, which used to be, depends on how we predict the stage, but I will say we used to be between 80 up to 120 grams an hour. And then we have the rest of the day, which is going to be they are going to eat them on the bus, because we're finish the stage until the hotel. They spend like an hour or 2 hours on the bus coming back. So we already do another meal there, and then we do let's say the final adjustment for dinner. So by the end, those are the timings where they are eating. Let's say we adjust them on base of how we predict the stage of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, let's say after a tough stage, right? What would be that carbohydrate intake in grams, like an average one for, let's say, a climber, like just to
Can
put a number in total?
can be like pretty high. I will say if it's a really tough day, in the total day you can see some numbers like maybe close to 17 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram in the total day. So that's quite high. And
So
then to put it on numbers, maybe they are going to have a post race meal where it can be close to maybe it changed a bit because we split the moments. For sure is after a big stage you cannot eat all the carbs in the same meal, so we try to split the moments where they are eating. But let's say probably they will eating more than 300 grams of carbohydrate from the end of the stage until dinner, until the dinner is finished.
I mean, they end up eating more than 1,000 grams of carbohydrates a day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Even more if you take in consideration what they are eating during the stage. But yeah, for
It's
sure.
funny. It's funny because I used to have a roommate, and he was telling me that he had to eat 500 grams of carbs, 500 grams of carbs a day. I mean, he's a football player, but I was just
Yeah.
like, he would just take in like such a high amount of rice. Now I can
Yeah.
imagine like more than double that. It just has to
Yeah.
be an
I mean,
incredible amount of food. And you mentioned that you, after the stage, you don't want to load all those carbohydrates in the same meal. Is it just because it will be too much, or is there another reason for which you want to split up those numbers?
no, it's because it's going to be that much and it's
Okay.
easier for them to split the numbers and let's say keep a good timing just to make sure they are able to replace the glycogen store like
Okay.
in a good way. But yeah, as you mentioned, is sometimes when you tell this to the people, it's quite can be quite funny. And
Yeah.
even I can tell you if you are doing a grand tour, like say Tour de France, Vuelta a España, Italy, whatever, and you are able to see how the guys are having dinner, you can even laugh because they are eating crazy amount of food.
Yeah.
But by the end, also they are spending that energy. So for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah. And
um,
I talked to another cycling nutritionist, and like as a somebody watching from the outside, you might have the misconception that, okay, these guys are definitely losing weight while they're doing the races, but it's like they cannot be losing weight because that means they're under fueling. Like that will mean they will not be able to perform in their losing weight. Like you want them to maintain that weight, which means that if they had spent 8,000 calories, they have to eat 8,000
yeah.
calories, and this is while they're competing, right? So they cannot be like super full. So, and I mean, were you going to say something, Matsu?
I wanted to ask if you choose different carbs for different meals. You mentioned like you take oats for the breakfast. What do you take like during the? What kind of carbs do you choose during the race and after the race?
Okay, that's a pretty good question. First of all, as Camilo mentioned, I mean, as we were discussing, when the rider is facing a really important competition, already the body composition is like really good. So we don't want from them that they are losing weight because that means they are missing performance also. So we need to make sure they are proper fueling for what is coming. Even sometimes the challenge is don't over fuel them because sometimes it can be quite easy to get some way if we are talking about a competition which is going to be like 2 or 3 weeks, no? So in that moment, we really need to be conscientious about that. In terms of the carbs, yeah, I mean, are so different if we are talking about the breakfast or if we are talking about on the bike. Let's say, as closer we are of the activity or competition or training or whatever, we need to put the carbs like the ones who are really easy to do the digestion. We are talking about maltodextrin, fructose, which are those ones that you will find it in the gels, in the drinks. And let's say those ones are really easy digestion. You are going to have any problem with them. And then when we are, let's say, a bit farther from the activity, we can have some carbohydrates which are a bit more elaborated and which are going to take a bit more of time. But then in general, they are eating quite clean, quite low fiber. So then the digestion, because as we are discussing, the amounts are so crazy that if you put some fiber or extra nutrients there, digestion is going to take so much time that is not going to be efficient, let's say. And in general, they are eating always like quite easy carbs in terms of digestion.
Yeah, and Marco, like I want to go also through protein and fat, and then once we have the numbers for those two other macros, we can go
Yeah.
through how a day in the life of like a day of eating for a cyclist looks like with specific foods. So,
Okay.
what numbers of protein and fat are you looking for? Because I imagine you're still wanting to get some of them in, right?
No, for sure. At the end, let's say fats plays a critical role in terms of, for sure, we are going to keep them quite low. But at the end, also fats is playing a role in, let's say, in your health, in your hormones, in many, many things. So we cannot go like extremely low. For sure, a good relationship can be a general rider used to be around 65, 75 grams of fats per day. Maybe up to, also the recommendation are on based to your total weight, so can change a bit, but let's say in general in competition fats are really really low, and that also is a bit easier because at the end they are avoiding the lunch because they are in the competition at that moment. So let's say like proper meals, they are having like breakfast and dinner. The other meals are like snacks and gels, drinks that they are having on the bike, that for sure at the moment they are not eating fats, no. So let's say in general fats are pretty low. And also during the season, I mean, when they are at home, fats are quite low because at the end, as we know, fats is the nutrient that brings more calories to your body. So if we are trying to have the calories under control, and we already discussed that the carbohydrates are the main nutrients in terms of energy, for sure the fats is always a bit tricky to keep them, let's say, under control. And then in terms of protein, I will say it's not a big challenge because as we know, protein is quite important in terms of recuperation, in terms to keep the muscle in a good situation. But then it's as they are eating such a huge amount of calories and they are eating many cereals, etc., they already get like a good amount of protein. So of course I will say proteins in cycling is more about timing than quantity, because quantity is quite easy to reach them. For sure, every day they are above 2 grams per kilogram. So that is, let's say, for them used to be like 140, 150 grams a day. And then it's more about timing because we need to put the, let's say, the protein shake after the stage just to make sure they're having a nice recovery. And then in the other moment of the day, around the activity, we try to reduce the protein because protein also makes longer the digestion, the time that the food is going to be in your stomach. So we don't want that around the competition. And then I will say dinner for sure is the moment of the day where they are having like a higher amount of protein. Also on that way, we make sure they are going to sleep and they can have like a proper recovery.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now that you're talking about it, like if you're eating like a kilogram of rice a day, that has at least some protein. So
Yeah,
just because of how the high amounts that you're getting, that's gonna give you at least a good head start, right?
It's like that. And even, okay, maybe rice, it hasn't that much amount of protein, but then if you jump into pasta, which is another carbo source that they are using quite a lot, pasta is in percentage of proteins, we can say is quite high to be let's say a carb of short, no? Because then, if of course, if you go to the potato, sweet potato, wherever, it's quite low. But in terms of pasta, they are already eating crazy amounts. So only with that, the proteins are going to be quite high. But for sure, also they used to eat daily like omelette, eggs, fish, meat. So protein is
You
not
want
going
those animal sources as well.
Yeah.
I was just curious because you see it firsthand. Let's say a cyclist is done after a hard day and he has to eat all the calories. Is it like he has to force himself, or they just inhale it because they burn so much calories anyway?
What you mean exactly?
Do they have to force themselves to eat that much, or it's easy for them because like for a normal person, of
No,
course.
in general, when you talk to them, they are quite happy because they are always hungry. They are so low fat mass, so they are always like hungry and looking towards for the meals. But in some moments, some specific days, it's quite challenging. Yeah, reach the amounts, and also I will say not only challenging, it's also quite tricky because as we have been talking, carbs amount are a lot higher than other nutrients, so maybe they finish the meal and they need to look for really specific carbo source, like maybe honey, jam, specific cereals or whatever, just to don't flick too much the numbers. Because let's say they are about to finish the meal, they got already almost the protein target, the fat target, but they are still missing maybe 40, 60 grams of carbs. So really need to, that is where the nutrition gets a bit challenging, I will say.
Yeah, and Marco, I think this is something that a lot of not only cyclists but then athletes in general can benefit from. But white carbs, like what carbs and not fat? I mean, both of them are sources of energy, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, biggest difference is that let's say when we are doing an exercise and the exercise start to get like really intense, our body is going to be easier it's going to be easier for our body to get the energy for the carbs because the carbs are already inside the muscle. Sometimes the fat store are far away from the muscle. You need to break down the fat. You need to transport it through the blood. It takes time. So let's say. As the intensity gets higher, our body goes easier for the carbs. Of course, fats still to play an important role. But the point about fats is that you cannot eat it during the activity because it takes too much time to do the digestion and it's not so efficient. And carbs, you can eat it and you will do the digestion so quickly. I mean, you are eating a gel and in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you are going to be using that energy. So it's like really quick. And let's say fats takes a more time, and also by the end you need to have like quite a sorry guys, I think I miss you.
No, I'm here.
So,
We're here.
okay, perfect. So let's say fats in general, it takes more time and it's not so efficient. But for sure, also as better is a rider, as better is going to use the fats that the rider has in his own body. So let's say when the intensity is not really high, let's say we are riding 60 to 70 of our max capacity, the rider is going to be able to get also the energy from the fat. So let's say a very good rider will be able to get the energy from there, and is going to make him able to save some glycogen store. So the glycogen store are going to be able to use it later on the day.
Okay, so like that's why it's also important to have that fat component in there, just for them to go to that fat store
Yes.
when the intensity is not that high, and then it's also important for the athlete to be able to use those energy sources, right? Not just to be able to use carbohydrates, just to make sure that the energy that they're getting is more efficient. So the main thing about carbohydrate is how efficiently it is broken down during high intensity exercise.
That's it. And also another key point is that you are able to eat them during the activity. So at the end, you can compensate a bit what you are spending.
Okay. And so now we got a good understanding of, okay, we want just a bunch of carbohydrates, just a lot of them, right? So perhaps 180 in the breakfast, then we go to between 80 to 120 during the activity per hour. And then after that competition, you can be getting like 300 grams of carbohydrates. So that's going to be the main source of energy. Then for fat, you still want some, just because of the general processes that go inside the body. And as you just mentioned, you also want to have a little bit of storage just for the athlete to be able to rely on it when the intensity is not that high. And then for the protein, you're getting at least those 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So how does that look like in practice? Okay, so to run us through a day of eating of let's say a climber in a main stage, right?
Okay. I mean, if we start from breakfast, for sure they will find different carbo source. I will say, generally they used to have an omelette. It's quite nice. I mean, just because at the end also we need to for example, we were discussing about the fats, and fats also make the diet nicer. It's not only because it's not the same to eat the plain rice that if you put some olive oil. So by the end, it's also because of that. But let's say in the breakfast, they can have a omelette. They will have maybe some bread, some jam, cereals with honey. Can be porridge, can be like cornflakes, this stuff. Also, for example, our chef, he prepares some crepes or pancakes, say healthy ones, but it's also a good way to get the carbs. And just try plain rice even also. So can be a general breakfast. For sure, they're also looking for maybe orange juice, which is quite easy to drink. You put a lot of carbs in, so it's a really good option. Then they jump into the bus, they go to the stage, and probably before the stage, they will have some snack. Can be maybe a gummy, a bar, also quite high in carbs in general. So that will be even a banana can be also a good option.
How much time before the stage?
Around 60 minutes before the stage, we'll say. Because then they have the team presentation. I mean, all those things going on.
Yeah.
And then, as we know, during the stage, they are going to use the gels, the drinks. Also, we prepare some things which are called like Rice Krispie, which is some cereals or rice cakes. Maybe you have seen them. It's like a piece of slice of, yes, high carbs also. After the stage, they will have the recovery shake. They will have some drinks. Maybe you see them already drinking a Fanta or soda, wherever, just to change a bit the flavor. Some more sugar, good to replace the glycogen store after the stage. And then when they jump into the bus, they will have also let's say we prepare a post-race meal where you will find another carbs. That can be pasta, can be rice, porridge, maybe. So we're still on the way. And then later on in the day, when they arrive to the hotel, they will find the dinner. Dinner used to be maybe risotto, maybe pasta, more bread. They will have the main dish of the day. Can be white fish, can be some meat, and always we prepare like a nice dessert also, just to make sure they are able to eat enough carbs. I mean, it's not like the dessert that you will find in a restaurant, which is like fully fatty, super tasty, but it's still nice to eat something different and put some extra carbs.
I see. And Marco, I mean, of course, these changes depending on the stage. Sometimes, as you mentioned, the caloric expenditure ends up being more than what you predicted. So how do you guys prepare for that? Do you guys give them just everything they might need in case something goes as it's not planned? Or are there some times that they end up like actually with less? Or do you want to just be as efficient as possible with what you're giving them?
But by the end, we are in the team, we have so many protocols. So let's say when a situation changes a bit, we already are prepared for that. And also, I mean, normally during the competition, we are there. So we are checking the numbers. As soon as they finish the stage, we can check the power. We can check the intakes that they have during the stage. So we can see if the difference are too high between what we plan and what is finally happened. And then we do the final adjustment. But let's say we are around there, so we can give them the recommendation or the advice just in the right moment, right timing. By the end, the best way to do is just talk with them and make sure that all the options are on the table already.
Yeah, and
a question which is similar. We talked about body composition before. Let's say, which hopefully doesn't happen, but you realize an athlete is underfueled. Is it you change it as quick as possible, which will you risk to overfuel him, or you do it like in a course of 1 week maybe only?
No. In those situations, we need to, let's say, change a bit the recommendation. Maybe an easier example to understand is also in terms of hydration. If suddenly you see somebody was missing drinks during the stage or wherever, we really jump in and give and put in our protocol. Let's say, just trying to get the rider in the right position again. And yes, we try to make the adjustment. For sure, it's sometimes it's too late because already the stage is just finished and we cannot do nothing for that day. But really looking towards for the next day is really important. Let's say how quick or how fast we get into the situation and we try to sort it out the problem or the issue.
Yeah, and Marco, I mean, I think a topic that a lot of people are interested in, and I think definitely applies to cycling. I mean, considering the high amount of nutrients that you guys have to take in just one day, what of supplement of nutrients, sorry, what supplements do you guys take to
Okay.
aid with that nutrition part, if
Okay.
you take any?
Yeah, by the end, supplements is also part of the game. I mean, it's not the basis are training, sleep, nutritional in general, but then supplements also we try to have them under control. I think supplements we can split them, let's say, in different categories. We have some of them which are really looking towards to improve the performance. We can talk about creatine, we can talk about caffeine. Those supplements that are really looking towards to improve the performance. And then we have another ones which are also by the end are going to improve the performance, but let's say it's in more general health, can be vitamin D, can be omega-3. So let's say what we used to do is we have to take care in consideration the blood test that they are doing quite often, because at the end in the blood test we can see really the level of one specific marker. So then on base to that we can give them like the right recommendation. For example, quite easy one to understand can be vitamin D. Let's say in Europe during winter is quite dark in general. They cannot get enough vitamin D through the sun. So by the end, we check the blood test. We see what is going on, what are the levels. Do they need the supplementation? Which amount? So let's see. On this way, we can get through that.
Okay, so you got the basic ones, but then the more specific ones are
Hmm.
coming from those tests that you're doing in the athletes, right?
That's it.
Okay, and creatine, you mentioned creatine. Are you guys taking creatine?
Yeah, depends on the moment of the season. For sure, in pre-season, they are doing a lot of strength training. They are doing a lot of stuff on the gym. So at this moment, creatine can help them to improve those gene adaptation or strength adaptation. So there can be a really good option. Later on in the season, we don't use it that much because at the end, as we mentioned, cycling is a sport where the relationship between power and weight play an important role. So by the end, when we are taking the creatine, we are retaining also some water inside of our muscle, which is not bad. It's part of of how our body works. But at the end, that means that the rider is going to be slightly heavier. So maybe if we are talking about a climber, we are not looking for that. We are looking maybe to have him as low in the body weight as possible, let's say. So yeah, in some moment of the season we use it, and other ones not that much.
Yeah, definitely. And Marco, I think all of the things that you've mentioned are just fascinating to me. And I mean, those apply. That just shows like the high level of cycling in which you guys are at. But I wanted to ask you a question. Let's say for somebody, an amateur cyclist, right? I know you are yourself somebody that likes to cycle. Perhaps you don't have a team behind you when you're doing this, but at least you know the principles of nutrition. So this also applies for, let's say, a youth athlete that wants to start their professional cycling career. If somebody's watching this and perhaps they don't have a team behind them that's able to track all of these numbers, maybe provide a nutrition strategy for them, what are some of the things that they can do to ensure that they're being fueled in the right way without necessarily having all this equipment?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a really interesting question, and by the end, probably it's quite useful for the people. Let's say in general, the approach will be quite similar, but not so crazy. We'll say. I mean, okay, we have been discussing like a huge amount of carbs, and okay, that is needed if we are doing 5 hours on the bike full gas. Let's say if we are going to train 2 hours, an hour and a half, or whatever, carbs are still important, even more if you are going to do some high intensity intervals, or you just want to go hard on the bike. For sure, we need to be focused on the carbs around the training. Let's say, just make sure if we are going to train on the morning, do a proper breakfast, some carbs there. Maybe before the ride, we don't need to eat a huge amount of fat because it's going to make our digestion a bit slower. Let's say, fiber, we can reduce it a bit, and then we can put all those nutrients at dinner, which is farther away from the activity, no? I will say also carb intakes during the ride is quite important. I mean, even if we are not going to look for a crazy performance or really go full gas, we still needing the carbs, and it's going to also to make our ride a bit nicer because we are going to be able to push harder or go faster or maybe not suffer that much. So it's still a good idea eat some carbs during the ride. We can go for some bananas. Always is a good idea. Find a good isotonic drink, which brings you like maybe around 40 grams of carbs per bidon. So you can go to ride on the bike with one bottle bidon and one isotonic drink bidon. So you can switch a bit between them, and at least you are covering in terms of hydration for 2 hours. And then in terms of carbs, we have the bananas, we have some bars, dry fruit also is good, like dates, figs, all this stuff. Of course, if we are looking to really do some good intervals or in a competition or just because we like to compete between our friends or wherever, gels and gummies can still like a really good option. But in general, try to eat health. Of course, we don't really need to track the grams or I will be maybe a bit more focused on the timing, right moment, carbs around training. Make sure we are eating a portion of protein each meal, and then let's say, okay, if we want to go into the details, just to reduce a bit the fiber around training, and then put it farther away, just to keep our body health also, and just play a bit with the amount of carbs on base what we are going to do. If we are going to train more, we can keep the nutrients, the other ones in the same line and increase the carbs, let's say. If we are going to train a bit less, just reduce the carbs and that's it. But in general, let's say a common mistake is that the people is under fueling in general, and maybe they are doing cycling and they are looking to improve body composition, and they think the way or the easiest way to do is just reduce the meals, and actually it's the opposite. We need to be proper fueling, training more, training better, and just don't be in a rush. Just trying to plan the things in advance. If we really want to look into the details, maybe a blood test can be a good idea just to check, general check, I will say. Or let's say iron status is good. We are no crazy stress, maybe some hormones like cortisol, all this stuff. But I will say that's a bit in the next level.
I see. Okay. So like the specifics is what changes, like when you're talking about the amount of grams per hour, the amount of grams per body weight, but then the principles stay the same. A good amount of carbohydrates before, during, and after. Try to keep the fiber as far as possible from the race, but then trying to fuel as much as possible with carbs during the race. At the
Yes.
end, and then adjusting that carbohydrate intake depending on the intensity and duration of the training, and
Yeah.
keeping the other ones the same. Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, okay, we are here talking that the professional riders, they are doing like 100, 120 grams an hour. Okay, that's in general, that's too much for our amateur cycling.
Yeah.
But even if we go until up to 60 grams an hour, or if we are really a good cyclist already, we have been training quite for a long time, maybe it's still like a good idea try to go until 90, and you are going to be performing much better than if you have done it in the past. So let's say even if we know some professional riders they are doing 120, 100, whatever, if we are able to do between 60 and 90, it will be great just to have a good performance, train hard, train healthy. Then if we are doing quite easy ride, we don't need to go so crazy. Let's say 30, 40 grams an hour, 60 if it's a bit longer, but we don't need to go so high, I will say.
Then I think it's good now that, I mean, now we get information on how many carbohydrates each thing has. You just look at the nutritional information. So you can, okay, if this gel has 50 grams of carbohydrates, I'll try to get 2 an hour, just to put an example, something like that. Okay. No, Marco, I just think this is so fascinating, and I can like just spend hours talking about the nutrition of, not just the nutrition in general, but then of cycling specifically, which for me is one of the most extreme sports that you can do in terms of how much energy you have to put into it. Just knowing how to balance that energy that you're expending with the one that you're taking it and doing it in a way that's efficient. I just think it's so great to learn, and I think the principles apply to every sport. Just finding out what's that nutrient that's going to yield the most benefits for your specific sport. In this case, it's carbohydrates, and for most high intensity sports, is the same. And
Yeah.
then just working the other nutrients around it, because you still need to get a good amount of them. So I just think you provided us with so much value, and I do really appreciate you just being here and sharing all those insights for you. Do you have anything else, Matze?
It was great to get so much insights, because like we said at the start, you always hear all cyclists, they get 8K calories to 12K.
Yeah.
But now we have like a breakdown how it actually is done.
Yeah.
Also, like anyone who's interested in nutrition or high level sports, I think it's a very nice podcast, and you get spread so much.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because some people might think, oh, you have to, as an athlete, you have to always eat salad, rice, and chicken, or broccoli, rice, and chicken. It's like, yeah, try eating 8,000 calories of rice, broccoli, and chicken. You're gonna be pretty miserable pretty quick, right?
Yeah,
So you
it's,
sometimes have to eat like a juice, sweet, like some things that for a normal individual might not be the go-to, because
yeah,
goals might be different. But then when you're talking about the highest performance athletes, you're eating to perform. You're not just eating to look good. And I think that's important for athletes to understand. And so, Marco, if you're okay, we can go to the rapid fire questions.
okay. Let's try.
Okay.
Let's try.
And
Perfect.
for this one, it's like the clips which got like the viral the most.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask the question. You can take your time. The goal is to make it like not longer than 1 minute,
Okay.
like straight to the point. And yeah,
Okay, I got it.
Marco, what, like, touching on the point that we just talked about, what is the healthy food that is actually terrible for performance?
Healthy food. Yeah, that's a good. Healthy food that is terrible for performance, no? Actually, why? If we are talking or close to the activity, man, broccoli is a bad one. It's healthy, but you don't want to have them close to the competition, I will say.
Okay.
and then caffeine. How much and when to take it?
Okay, that's a good one. I will say caffeine is really important. The amount is on based on the, let's say, the duration of the effort that you are going to do. Let's say as longer is the effort, as smarter you have to be on the amount. But let's say in general, the gels or those stuff is around 100 milligrams. For sure, if the effort is really short and concrete, you can go higher. And timing is really important, because at the end, caffeine takes like between 30-40 minutes just to get the peak in your blood. So at least just to make sure to take in that advance, because a general mistake is take it too late. No? We are waiting, and suddenly we think caffeine is like this, and no. By the end, it takes like 30-40 minutes just to get the peak on the blood.
This
Okay.
happened to me one time before a game. We had a game, so I drank caffeine, and then the game got delayed because it was weather warning. And then I was like in the dressing room, like, I'm ready.
Yeah, that day you didn't need to do the warming up, no?
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah, I
wrong.
was already warmed up. And Marco, can a vegan win a Grand Tour?
Yeah, they can. It's yeah, they can. It's not. I think by the end, it's not going to play like nowadays. It's not going to play like a critical role in performance, I will say. So doesn't matter that much if you are vegan or if you are full diet, that you are going to be able to get the victory if you are good enough.
Okay, and just to follow up, is it mainly because of the high carbohydrate reliance of cycling, or is it general for every sport that you can, as a vegan, get a good amount of nutrition?
I think nowadays with all the options that you have already, the carbs, all of them are vegan options. So let's say in terms of energy, it's not going to be like a challenge. And then nowadays we have so many options also in terms of protein. If you ask me what is the optimal one, I will get some animal food also. But in general, a vegan nowadays can perform well without any problem, I will say.
Marco, extra question that wasn't planned. Can an athlete, not just a cyclist, because I think I know the answer for a cyclist, that does the keto diet win?
No, in cycling is no way. Other sports, maybe. I mean, I won't say it's optimal because I think nowadays, if we are talking about the highest performance level or whatever, keto diet is no best option because we are missing so a much of quick energy, I will say. But in cycling, is no way. In cycling, is no way. In other sport, maybe.
Yeah, okay, I see.
I won't do it on myself, I will say, just in case. But I mean, in some situation, keto diet can be a good option. Performance-wise, I will say no.
And Marco, what's your go-to meal when you have only 10 minutes to cook?
10 minutes to cook. Hey, white rice, man.
And
Just
does
white
it
rice.
also apply? Does it also apply for the cyclists?
Yeah, can be.
Can you do white rice in 10 minutes? Doesn't it take more than
Maybe pasta.
The made pasta, yeah, still, but pasta can be also.
The rice might be crispy.
Otherwise, just a banana and coffee, and that's it, and we go ahead.
Okay. Marco, if you can give us some rules of thumb to determine how many calories, how much protein, how many carbs, and how much fat should I take? I mean, maybe as a ratio of my weight or something.
Okay, let's say, but what are you going to do on that day or something like that? Put
Okay,
me
I'm
as-
I'm a just I'm somebody that trains let's say an hour and a half of soccer a day, you know, like not as extreme as cycling, but then I
Yeah.
do some exercise that's high intensity in the day.
Okay, so I will say a good recommendation for you can be around 5 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram, 5 to 6. So that means, okay, if you are, how is your weight? Can we tell? Can we say or
Yeah,
not?
yeah. It's 72 kg.
72 kg. So actually, it will be 70. That means 140, 140, 280. So around 300 grams of carbohydrate, I will say. Maybe a bit higher, depends on the day. Then for sure, the fats, you can keep it around close to 100 grams a day, which is going to be like 1.5 gram per kilogram, maybe a bit higher. I will say one. In your weight will be around 100, I will say. Then proteins, you can have it like between 2 and 2.5 grams per kilogram. For sure, I will stay maybe in the higher side as carbs are not so high. Football is a sport with a lot of muscle damage because you are always running, stopping, changing the direction. So really important to have a proper amount of protein. So I will keep it like close to 2.5 grams per kilogram. That for you, it will be actually close to one. I'm not very good in maths, but
170, something like that.
I will say I was about to say 180, but yeah, around.
Yeah, and in terms of calories, is there a rule of thumb for me to know like how many calories I should be taking?
Not really. I guess like as a football guy will be quite close to 3,000 a day with those numbers also. So it's no, let's say in terms of calorie, I won't put the focus on that just to get the right nutrients in the right moment and make sure you are able to train properly. And then after the training, you have a good, let's say, recuperation protocol or whatever. Just make sure you are well hydrated, having a nice dinner later on, and that's it.
Perfect.
And as you know, in the social media, like in the fitness scene, there's a lot of myths going on. So I wanted to ask you, is it true that if you train fasted, you lose more weight?
Let's say, for example, if you are a runner, if you run faster, you lose more weight. That will be the question. Yeah, can be quite true because at the end, let's say if you are able to run faster, it's because you are also fitter in general. So let's say
fasted like with no food in your stomach.
Okay, sorry, faster. I mean, can be quite that's a good question. I mean, I will say if we are really talking about high performance, I won't recommend it. If we are talking about general population, can be like quite a good approach just to make sure, because at the end it's much easier to eat less amount of calories. Probably you are going to be in general, your feeling is going to be that you are always full because then you are going to have quite a big meal. So in general, can be a nice approach, but I mean, by the end, nowadays I think it's not a biggest difference between do a intermittent fasting, for example, and do a low a deficit calorie diet. I mean, by the end, the input is quite similar.
Yeah, I think it comes more on the fact that you're chunking all your calories only in like 2 meals, and of course that's gonna give you a perception of being more full, right? Not necessarily because
and by the end, probably you are going to be eating less.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Like being if you're gonna have to put 3,000 calories in only 2 meals, where you're gonna be way more full, and perhaps you're gonna end up eating a little bit less. Okay.
Yeah.
But then maybe I have to reframe the question before we last ask it. So you probably burn more fat. Maybe that's what the people were saying, because your body takes fat resources faster.
Yeah, I mean, depends what are the exercise that you are going to do. Okay, maybe, of course, if you're going to do some cardio or endurance, you are going to spend a bit more of a fat, I will say. But at the end, if you are trying to lose weight, let's say the main point if it's going to be if you are in a deficit or surplus diet, no? So it doesn't change that much. And sometimes, for example, we can do a training that we spend more calories, and that is going to be more useful to train without eating nothing previously, no? So at the end, I would say it's not a biggest difference.
Perfect answer. And Marco, to finish it off, if you can leave a piece of advice to young athletes, which one would it be?
That's a good important one. I will say in general is I think young athletes, they should be focused on the basics, because nowadays I think we have like plenty of information in social media, wherever, crazy stuff going in, going out. I think if they are looking to improve and they are looking to grow up in any specific sport, the best that they can do is just build a nice environment, good people, maybe a good coach, good nutritionist. I mean, I will say the most important is be surrounded by people who already has the knowledge and make your pathway like a bit easier. Or so because nowadays we can get lost so quickly with all the information that we are dealing. So I will say the biggest advice will be surrounded by people who really can support you. I spend the time on finding that people, I will say, or that person.
That's why they should watch the awareness podcast.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's a first step that they can do.
Right? No, Marco, I mean, as I told you before, I can just stay here just talking about all these things for such a long amount of time. And again, I truly appreciate you just being willing from the first moment, and just being involved in providing as much value as possible, being willing to just share your insights, share your experience, which I believe are very valuable to whoever are watching. There certainly are for us. So I really want to thank you for just being here and just sharing with us all your knowledge. I truly appreciate it, Marco, and looking forward to just speaking again with you, man.
Thank you very much, Marco. It was a pleasure.
No, the pleasure is mine. Yes, I want to say thank you for letting me share this space, and really also looking towards for the next chapter.